Some UFC legends go out sad. Izzy had to pay the piper last Saturday, unfortunately, and is continuing to go out sad. And out of the 4 losses in this streak, in my opinion, this is the toughest one to watch, just because you can clearly see he just doesn't have it anymore. He had a very good first round, and the leg kicks were money, but when he started to brawl, he decided to get in the mix of things. He unfortunately crumbled, got mounted easily, and the rest is history. But why do some fighters go out sad at the end of their careers? Israel Adesanya, Anderson Silva, Tony Ferguson, BJ Penn were all once legends who dominated their competition but went on horrible, very bad skids at the tail end of their careers. But on the flip side, you have fighters like Alex Pereira, who is older than Israel Adesanya, having an amazing career at 38, is set to fight on the UFC White House card, and was ready to sign an 8-fight deal with the UFC. Is it just age that is taking out these UFC legends towards the end of their career like Israel Adesanya, or is there something else? Alright, let's start off with the big one, and that's the degradation of speed and reaction time. Anderson Silva, Israel Adesanya, and BJ Penn have a style that heavily relies on not just being faster than their opponents, but more importantly, having way better reaction times than their opponents. If you want to watch a prime Israel Adesanya, please watch Izzy versus Robert Whittaker 1 again. What really impresses me when watching it back now is not just the knockout, but how quick Izzy's reaction time was here. He was comfortably moving in the pocket against another quick striker in Robert Whittaker and was avoiding head kicks, big left hooks, and please watch the finishing sequence in full speed. I obviously can't do it justice, but in the heat of Whittaker throwing this 1-2, Izzy was able to find the perfect left hook counter to send Rob to the ground while also avoiding those shots and become champion. And the one who did it first, Anderson Silva, was constantly in the matrix, like he was against Forrest Griffin, my favorite knockout of his, and finished the fight by avoiding these strikes and finding a punch of his own on the back foot to send Forrest down. And when GSP fought BJ Penn for the second time, him and his team found, frame by frame, that BJ Penn had the fastest reaction time on the roster at that time. All these guys made legendary careers out of having insane reaction times, and their style's foundation really builds on that. Hands low, super reactionary. Pretty much all their highlights are counters off what their opponents were giving them. And their defense was essentially being able to react fast enough to their opponent's strikes. And Tony didn't really have that type of style on the feet, but man, you can see in his last couple of fights his inability to transition on the ground, which led to 3 of his 4 losses ending in submission. And they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and because of that dependency on their reaction time, their style just doesn't work as well when they get to 33, 34, 35, 36, etc. According to this study that conducted reaction time and other motor skills using video games, they found that around 24 is when reaction times peak, and using this graph you can see there's a really steep slope starting from someone's peak at around 24. The reaction time difference, according to this graph, between 24 and about 36 maybe doesn't look like that much, but considering fighting is a game of inches and milliseconds, that could be a huge difference between barely getting out of the way and countering someone or getting starched and laid out. Compare a 29-year-old Israel Adesanya fighting for the belt, dodging pretty much every shot Robert Whittaker was throwing in the pocket, to a 36-year-old Israel Adesanya who can't see this meatball of a right hand down the middle from a 29-year-old Joe Pyfer. And then you compare this to Alex Pereira, who has a completely different style. Sure, don't get me wrong, Alex Pereira still has some solid reaction time and speed at his age, but his style just doesn't rely on that. His style is mostly pressure and power and finding an opening for a kill shot. They say power is the last thing to go, and even if Alex doesn't have the speed or reaction time he used to, he still has that insane godlike power at the age of 38. And what doesn't help Izzy, and what didn't help those legends before him that went on crazy losing streaks, is that the UFC will continue to give Izzy and those guys some pretty dangerous names. They gave Izzy Dricus du Plessis, Nasruddin Imavov, and a hard-hitting Joe Pyfer in his last 3, and they're going to continue to keep putting Izzy up against young and dangerous guys. Joe Pyfer wasn't really known by the UFC casual community until probably now that his name is attached to knocking out a legend and a star in Izzy, and same with Nasruddin Imavov. People are going to continue to keep eyes on these young prospects, because now they know them as the guy that knocked out Israel Adesanya. And that definitely propelled their stock. And Israel Adesanya should know this very well, as he did the same thing to Anderson Silva in a classic passing of the torch moment that added a legendary name in Anderson Silva to his resume and probably got his stock way up during his run to the belt when he was 28 or 29. Unfortunately, the legendary name that they have is going to work to these guys' detriment when they're older, because their name still sells even if their reaction time, speed, and youth doesn't. And so to build a young star, the UFC often matchmakes an established name like Israel Adesanya, Anderson Silva, BJ Penn, or Tony Ferguson to guys like Joe Pyfer, a young Israel Adesanya, a super young Yair Rodriguez, or Paddy Pimblett, in hopes that that legendary name brings eyes to the fight. The younger guy gets the win, adds that star to their resume, and moves them up the rankings, and it typically works. So at this age, it's actually harder for Izzy to win because of his name and the eyes he gets to the events. Izzy is not going to get the Michael Chiesa treatment, and they're not going to give him a layup of a fight like Nico Price. They're going to keep milking Izzy's name until he's on like an 8 or 9 fight losing streak. Izzy's next fight is probably going to be like, dare I say, a prime RoboCop, and that's really scary. And what's also scary at this age is the weight cut. Do you guys see what Israel Adesanya looked like in the lead up of this? Compare that to, say, the weigh-in against Paulo Costa, and it's a night and day difference. This dude had to get spoon-fed during his cut. It was that awful. We've seen what a brutal weight cut does to guys and how they absorb punches, as Israel Adesanya ironically showed us when he knocked out Alex Pereira stiff with punches that were clean. Alex just simply didn't have the hydration in his brain to withstand the punches coming from Izzy. Tony Ferguson kept trying to cut to lightweight deep into his 30s, and his once iron chin continued to get cracked bad following the Gaethje fight. Israel Adesanya, as he gets up there in age, is just going to keep having brutal weight cuts, and it's going to be so much harder for his body to try to make 185. That's why on the flip side, Alex Pereira moving up from 185 to 205 and now heavyweight is such a great career move, because he's 38 years old. No way is his ass making 205 anymore, let alone 185 at that age. What's crazy is that BJ Penn did the opposite. He went from welterweight, and then as he aged, he actually started going down to try to get more success at lower weight classes, and ended up facing a 24-year-old Yair Rodriguez at featherweight and got starched, and now unfortunately doesn't even think his family's real anymore. If Izzy does actually continue to fight, I really hope at some point he moves up to 205, because there's no way he can make 185 anymore and then withstand the shots coming from young killers at middleweight. So what's next for Israel Adesanya? Honestly, it should have been retirement, but I doubt that he actually will retire soon, especially with what he said in the post-fight interview about wanting to keep going and going. He's stuck in that can't end on a loss mentality. We saw that with Tony too, when he kept saying that he was going to be a new Tony every single fight, and every single fight he kept losing very badly. These guys have too much pride, and I understand it. I mean, how can you go from a 12-fight win streak to an 8-fight losing streak? How can you go from a dominant title run to 4 brutal losses, and then one of the greatest title runs in UFC history to 1-1-7 to end your career? These guys still have that confidence, still have that ability to try to pull off the impossible, because at some point in their career they did. But they say Father Time is undefeated for a reason. It's just gonna keep on piling up for Izzy. Izzy is going to keep on getting young killers, not have the reaction time to avoid the shot from those said young killers, or the fluid in his head to sustain those shots, and if he doesn't cut his losses now, he's going to end up like these guys. So what's next for Israel Adesanya? When do you think he's going to retire? Is he going to continue to go on like a 5, 6, 7 fight losing streak? Should he move up to light heavyweight, try to see some success there, and not have to make a brutal weight cut down to 185 and get punched out by a guy like RoboCop? Anyways, what do you guys think about the topics in today's video? Thank you guys for always supporting, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.